Welcome everyone to Tabernacle Church live life stream. Today we are doing part two of protest versus progress. I am very happy with our last session, but in this session we're going to be talking about the power of the black dollar. Um, we believe here that protest is important and it is making progress, but it is also important to be effective in progressive ways like casting your vote, which myself and Myra, we did today, even though we don't have on our sticker. Please don't judge us. We're very busy people. Um, and as well as the economic implications of building a stronger community and lasting change through economics.
Mm.
Today, we have two very special guests. As you saw in the flyer, we have a global executive, Tony Jones, and we have a financial advisor, Mr. Kevin Gomez, who has his own financial advisement practice. I'm going to let Myra give these gentlemen an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about themselves. But today we're going to be talking about the power of your dollar, some practical things you can do with that dollar to make lasting change in our community so that we don't have to live like this ever again. Myra?
Yes, thank you, Taylor. Appreciate that. As Taylor mentioned, we want to make sure you feel empowered to do something. I know a lot of times, especially in the social unrest, it feels as if we are powerless,
Yes.
and that is far from the truth. There are so many things that we can do, and it really starts with our own understanding of our economic stability and the power we have with our own dollar. So,
Yes.
this conversation will help you understand just what that power is. So, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We hope that we can get to all of your questions today. And without further ado, I'm going to invite Tony to just tell us a little bit about himself and what he does in his work.
Thank you for that introduction. So I'm Tony Jones. Welcome to all. Great evening. Um, I have a pretty simple story. I'm an Ohio native. I've been in Atlanta for about 20 years working in what we call the digital marketing and IT space. What that means is that as a global executive, I help my company build great digital experiences for customers. If you guys have ever looked at it and did a car configurator on Volvo, if you guys have flown on Delta and you've ordered snacks, if you
Mhm.
have worked with Coca-Cola and used some of the vending machines which allow you to actually select different flavors and mixes of flavors, I've been critical and foundational in the development of that. I think why my story is relevant to here is that myself, like probably a lot of you, my background is very humble.
Mm.
I think with great mentorship, being able to have conversations like we're about to have this evening, I've been able to progress and grow my family and grow my community and play a role of each one, teach one. And I think that is so critical for our community. I hope to be able to give you this evening some perspective from a what I call factual and tactical perspective. I don't beat around the bush. I like to be very direct, and I'm an open book when it comes to question. But thank you all for having me here this evening.
Thank you for being here, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. And Mr. Kevin Gomez, if you could tell us a little bit about your practice as well.
How are you guys doing this evening?
Great.
So my practice, I guess I'll start with myself first. Like Tony, I'm an Atlanta native, grew up in DeKalb County, Decatur, Georgia. I've been back home from my MBA at FAMU for about 16 years now. I run a wealth management practice it sits right in Buckhead. We've got a national presence, and we work with executives on like retirement readiness. And on the other end of the spectrum, we work with just folks who, good stewards of money, folks who are educated and hardworking, who are looking to try to figure out, how do I get from where I am to a specific destination? So they're typically looking for a trust partner and an expertise partner, but someone who can really show them, hey, in today's world, how can I take the things that I have as resources around me and then successfully retire?
Love that.
Love that.
We've got a great panel today. I'm going to kick off with the first question, if that's okay. I want to tie, we talked about the title protest versus progress. I really want to tie some of the social unrest that we see happening today. How does that tie with potentially economic inequality that we see in the African American community? And maybe what are some of you all's thoughts on what we can do about that? And Kevin, I'll start with you.
So, in reference to economic inequality, I think it comes at two ends. You've got the disparities that exist from within our race
Mm,
and those outside of our race. But then you also have the disparities that exist within our race. And so, if I could speak to the question, I think today we're at a unique time. You know, you have people who are in their 50s and 60s and their children who are in their, late 30s and 40s, who are experiencing or who have experienced the same thing, but decades apart. And
mm,
so when people are starting to, really get a feel for, history almost repeating itself and trying to find answers, I think
mm.
what you see playing out is just, some internal shouts that are making it and becoming external.
Wow, that's powerful.
Tony, why don't you weigh in on that question?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for that. That's awesome and great perspective. I think when you look at economic inequality and how it relates to social unrest today, I think we have to take these, economic inequalities and look at how we build upon them, right? One of the things that you have to really realize about, America, this is a democracy, but it's a democracy with what I would call capitalistic roots more than socialistic roots. What that really means is that, it is a democracy,
Mm,
but money controls everything, and the power of your dollar is extremely important in everything we do. When you think about, the how governments are controlled or how the police, react or interact with our neighborhoods, you have to look at the power of monetary influence in the world of lobbying, right? It's not just about
mhm,
voting, right? When you think about it, your dollars pay for a lot of these first responders and civil servants, right? So when you are using and you're providing your dollar, it's not just about your dollar, it's also about your voice. So in times of inequality, we see now we're talking a lot more with our voice in terms of protest. But you have to
mm,
take that, you have to do that every day. You have to look to do that to improve your schools, support your teachers, which I think is super critical here. You have to take some of that economic power and hold fundraisers and develop community projects and support your first responders and your police forces, right? Communication is everything a lot of times. And I think that actually matters sometimes more than your dollars when it comes to your local schools and community, right? It's not just about, cutting a check. It's often about showing, I call it showing up and showing out, right?
Mm,
As I
yeah,
like to say it. So that's my perspective on it. Um,
that's great.
that's really good. Um, so you were saying about the community, how we can use our dollars to, improve our communities. Our dollars pay for, a lot of the things in our communities, like first responders and so on and so forth. There are a lot of videos and resources circling that is in an attempt to educate people about the centuries of social and economic injustice that has plagued our nation. These are not new facts. Why do you think that this information is starting to finally get people's attention? And we can let you take the first stab at this one, Kevin.
So I think you make a very, very wise, very, perceptive point. People in the age of information, and that's where we are. Data is readily available. Anyone who would like to voice their opinion, they can, whether
Mhm,
it's Facebook, Instagram, whether it's blog posts, SoundCloud, you name it. And so people, especially the younger generation and
mm,
the parts of the older generation that, we joked about this yesterday, but they're hip on digital. So, information is everywhere. So
yep.
I think when you start to, really personally develop a sense of self and where do I come from, you start to ask questions. And now, just as easy as you can ask the question, you can find the answer or some resources that will point you to it. And so I think, it's almost like we've gotten to 2020 and some of the veils of history, they're being lifted from our eyes. And so people are starting to see, things that maybe were only, there was a point where it was illegal for us to read and to learn, to be educated. And so now, you look how we have changed. And so these freedoms, they're turning themselves and they're, probably changing the balance to where, equality is. It may not come in my lifetime, but it is definitely on the way.
Mm.
To add to that, I think, when you get people's attention, you get their dollars. I'm going to be honest. Like, when I talk to my customers, about how to get you to spend more, it's about keeping your attention and addressing your needs. So catching people's attention is priority because it affects the dollar. When you look at what's going on today, brands, they don't want to be on the bad side of history. I think now, because we're in this digital area, it's really quick for us to be able to look something up and see, the history behind it, the cause and the effect, right? And I always have one saying that I say to everybody, those that do not study and understand history's failures are doomed to repeat them. So that being said, right, people don't want to be on the bad side of the history. You're hearing a lot of stories from brands talking about they care. Well, they care because they want your attention, right? And they want your attention because they want your dollars. So I tell people it's about focusing your energy. It's about, if people want your attention, let's make sure that they pay for it, right? And let's make sure that they continue to support it, right?
Right.
Attention equals dollars. It's that simple.
Attention equals dollars.
Yeah.
So with all of that being said, since we get attention and we are getting attention, a lot of attention, I think it's remarkable how our white American brothers and sisters get to see how we feel having to walk this line of not knowing what to say. Or if we say the wrong thing, then we're in trouble. If we don't do the right thing, then we're in trouble. I think it's awesome that they get to live this experience, because in shared experience brings evolution. So now that we have our counterparts' attention, what opportunities are available to allow individuals who are affected by socioeconomic injustice and depression? What can we tell people is available to them at this time, to where they can do something about their economic and socioeconomic situation?
Yeah, I think a lot of brands are figuring out that they've been insensitive, to race, sexual preference, and gender. And I think a lot of times, especially within corporate America, they are trying to do better. Even from my company's perspective, our CEO reached out to all the minorities within the company to say, hey, we care, we have support for you. If you need time off, take advantage of that. So that being said, people are becoming a lot more understanding. And I think the other thing that we have to kind of take a look at too, is that, despite all this injustice, right, we have to look at, from a minority perspective, we have to look and see how we take advantage of some of the programs and things that are out there. Right now, lots of Black businesses are getting attention. My grandmother lives in a small town of Orrville, Ohio, and it has a population of maybe 8,000 people. And the local newspapers there within this county, they're all talking about, we need to support our Black businesses going forward, not because they're Black, but because they're Black. People will not visit their businesses. They won't, consume their services. White businesses do not have that problem. So you're seeing the local newspaper and the local community go out and support Black businesses. Take advantage of that, right?
Yeah.
Never let go of an opportunity. If an opportunity presents itself, use that. And lastly, I think when you think about, opportunity, diversity is big business, right? It's a prime opportunity to partner up with organizations and talk about how you can go and execute diversity and awareness campaigns. I think within some of your organizations, being part of the diversity committees to be able to commit to change, I think is valuable. Like I said before, we spend a lot of, money, right? And I think besides your money, what we also need to understand is that our culture influences brands, our culture
Yeah,
influences organizations
it
and revenue,
does.
and we have to take advantage of that. Get your face out there, be that face in
Hmm.
the room. I mean, like I said before, you've seen brands like H&M
Yeah,
and Gucci make very big mistakes about putting blackface out there. And the
yeah.
first thing I said, some of my counterparts were there no black people in the room when they came up with this campaign.
Mm.
So that being said, that's the opportunity. That's the opportunity for advancement. And I think we'll talk a little bit about it, later, about that glass ceiling. A lot of times that glass ceiling does not have that diversity. And when it does not have that diversity, it costs people money.
Let's stay there with the brands just a little bit, and we can talk about the glass ceiling and some other things. I want to make that personal because you talked about brands and a lot of those luxury brands and things like that where people, and we'll make it even more personal in the Black community. It's a badge of honor to be able to wear brands that symbolize, I have a lot of
United.
money,
Hmm.
and so we typically wear brands. We spend a lot of money, and it's really not an investment. So, what are some ways we can start thinking about how we spend our money? These brands aren't investing in us. We're doing free marketing for these brands. They're not investing back in our community. So thinking about it that way. And then B, what should we be doing with our money instead of investing in something that is, disposable and not really an investment back into us and our communities?
Gotcha. Kevin, you want to take that one? I know I've been talking quite a bit.
Sure. I think you can do a couple things. One of the principles, I guess you will, that I've always tried to live by and then strive towards is, you should have assets, you should have ownership, and you should have income. So
Mm,
personally, like one of the reasons that I chose the career that I'm in financial services is because when I was in college, I liked the thought that, I could earn income today and my efforts today, they would have financial impact, not just next year, but 5 and 10 years from now. And so I think, everybody could say, hey, before I decide to have what I would call sunk costs, meaning things that I'm sinking money into that aren't paying me,
yeah.
I would develop a mind for, what can I own that can pay me and how can I put my money into that repeatedly? And so that could be something, as tangible as a snowball truck, a food truck where, most of us, we know how to cook and most of us have a special dish. If we owned a food truck, I think you can get a food truck for $10,000. During our lifetime, we buy probably 4 or 5 cars, and we probably spend 100 grand on cars.
Wow.
Wow.
Uh, but if we could spend 10 grand on a food truck and just make our favorite dish, even if we only went out, when we wanted to, there's power in being able to say, hey, I'm going to set this truck up 2 times a month and they make an extra $1,000 this month, something like that. If you took that thousand and, put it on your house, you probably pay your house off 15 years earlier.
That's huge.
That's huge.
And that's,
And,
one
and
way.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, interject real quick. And Kevin, one more point to that. Like, coming up and creating your own ideas and your businesses. Like, we are. I call minorities and Black folks. We're the ambassadors of brand. We know how to make a brand and a name for ourselves. And taking your special jerk chicken or your fried chicken and making money off of something that you like to do is the smart way to spend your money. You guys are, we all listen to rappers and rap music. I like my trap every now and then too. But, Nicki Minaj says, one of her songs, she says, B, I'm a brand, B, I'm a brand, right? She
Mm,
knows where the money is, right? The money is not in Spotify streams and selling records. It's in everything about her persona, her attitude, and the clothing and everything else that sells. The whole Fashion Nova thing with Rihanna. They basically said, why am I giving my brand away to make somebody else rich, right?
Exactly.
And this is where I see so much opportunity for us to start businesses on our own, especially in industries like fashion and makeup, in hair. We're trendsetters, right? Why let somebody else copy your trends and make money off of it? And the whole essence behind that is that, I tell people what you wear doesn't make you rich. Warren Buffett is, probably one of the richest people in the world, and he drives a 96 Cadillac Brougham, right? And he's worth billions. Bill Gates, walks around in Chuck Converse. Rich people don't have to tell you they're rich because
Yeah.
they're rich. It's in what they do in their actions, and so I tell people, behave accordingly. Like, if you got a great brand, if you got a great product or whatever, you don't have to show it off. The product and the results speak to themselves. And, I tell people about, looking good. Us as Black people, we always look good. We're the ambassadors of looking good. You have to think about where, when you start spending money on some of these brands, it's a double money maker for them. Number one, you're paying an extra price for it. And then number two, they're getting free advertising by you wearing it,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So why are they getting paid twice? And you get, and Kevin will say, now you're in the loss, right? You're in the arrears now. So that's what we have to think about. We can be individuals. We can have our own things. We should be starting our own brands rather than giving them to someone else.
So many gems in that.
Yeah,
I'll
I
let
mean, when
take
you
it.
think about it, there's no more FUBU, there's
Yeah.
no more Carl Kanai, there's no more Mecca. There's all of these brands, these clothing brands that used to be ours, cross colors. I mean, maybe I'm old and I just don't know, but
Right.
who are our cross colors now? Who is our FUBU now? Who's our Carl Kanai now? So, audience, take this. I preach to you about how Genesis is about the beginning, but the God created the earth. But all of that is about creation. God created. You guys ought to take your time. It's a power in being creative, and you can turn that power into business and opportunity for yourself. So that's basically the gist of this segment. But let's keep it going. What else do we got, Myra?
I wanted to just kind of pick up and summarize. You all both hit some major things, Kevin, about finding something that you do well and creating your own business, having multiple streams of income, which we'll talk about. Having a business, you may even work for a corporation, but have a way to invest on the side. Tony, you talked about it's a mindset, really. If you think about yourself as a brand, Nicki Minaj talked about it. Jay-Z talked about it. He said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So you look at yourself, your brand is a business. So all of those things, your skills, your assets, things that you can offer, you can make money off of that. So let's even shift a little bit more and talk about multiple streams of income and how we, say I'm a working class citizen and I want to look at ways that I can make wealth and generate wealth. Say I don't make a lot of money. How do I think about this? How do I even start to think about how I can have multiple streams of income when I may, have a working class job and that doesn't even seem real yet to me?
Great question.
Start with Kevin.
Got it. So multiple streams of income, when today you might feel like I don't have a ton of income. And I would always start with invest in yourself. Most of us, we work 40 hours a week, but there's 168 hours in the week.
My God.
And so what that means is we have a ton of time to take that extra time and say, how do we pour into ourselves and make our value compound? And so, I would say tangibly, if you come home, this is something I got from someone I know personally that has more than a couple million. Come home every day and invest in yourself 2 hours a day after your job. Wow. Work on a skill. And so, there's multiple schools in Atlanta right now, for example, where you can walk in making 35 or 40,000 and take a tech-based course for 2 months, maybe 3, and you walk out making $65,000.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, if you can think of how wealth is generated, there's really 3 large components. There's how much money you're putting away. So,
Mm-hmm.
one, we're addressing that right now. And so, if you don't have a ton, work on yourself and you can get more. There's the time of how long you have until you need that money if it was being invested to have it compound. And then third, there's the actual interest rate or the compounding rate that happens to your money. And so the unique thing is that of those 3 things, there's 2 of them that we control: when we start and how much that we decide to put away.
Mm.
And so it's all about a mindset. And when you can get a personal agenda of excellence, and you take that opportunity and invest in yourself, really it's about the people who are around you, who are within arm's reach, that can help pull you to wherever is next. Because if we look around when we're either at church or when we're at work or when we, go to the grocery store, there's always someone around, who we could spark a relationship with that knows a little bit more than we do. And so, it's about taking it personal, it's about networking, and it's
Yeah.
about, getting serious about it.
Yeah. Tony,
Yeah, and
did
I
you
like
want to?
to, yeah, and I like to, tell young folks kind of, how I did this, when I was in my 20s. Like, you know, when you're in your 20s and early 30s and you're single, you got a lot of energy, and I remember in Atlanta in the early 2000s, like my whole repertoire was to work my 9 to 5, come home, eat. And I found a contract job of where I was doing contract development of e-commerce sites, right? Contract job that was paying me about $100 an hour. And all I was doing was building an e-commerce site. So I would literally work my 9 to 5. I would come home, do this e-commerce work for about 4 to 6 hours, go to the Shark Bar for a couple of hours and hang out and actually meet and hang out with people. You find a lot of, I tell people, you learn a lot from hanging out and talking to the right people. Learn the business side of things and go home and sleep for about 6 or 7 hours and then, get back up and do it again. My thing is that, Kevin made an excellent point, invest in yourself. I took
Yeah.
that extra time of where, I could just be sitting around here watching TV or doing nothing. I took that to kind of better myself within, my industry, and get a lot smarter and get a lot better. I think the other way you can kind of look at it, and a good example, my son took on, trading stocks, and he's 14 years old.
Wow.
He started when he was 12. He put about, $300 in the market and didn't know how to, do things like stop sells and things like that. And he lost it all, $300. This time he wanted to do it again. But I said, instead of playing Xbox in this Corona downtime, I need you to read up and invest in yourself and learn about the financial industry, learn about the market, learn how to trade, learn when to pull stops or to look at options. And he did it. And the reason he did it is that he said, you know what, it is extra time. It's only a couple hours of reading. And then I make a lot more money than I do, than I would working, and doing a job at Costco doing inventory. Right. So again, you have 14-year-olds that says, you know what, reading, investing for dummies. I can now take another stream of income. I can take some of my savings and make money on it. And he did it in the time of COVID when the stocks were about 50% down. And he's
Yeah.
well in the green. So again, this is investing in yourself to pick up a new trade, to understand business, to have conversations. All of that is investing in yourself so you can start looking at those other streams of income. And I think, we talked yesterday a little bit, and hustle is not doing one thing. Hustle is doing multiple things. It's multiple
Yeah.
fires in the iron, right? So to me, anytime somebody says, well, I'm a hustler, and I'm like, hustle how, right? Hustling in one direction is not a hustle, at least where I come from, right? And how I learned what hustle was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And I think that's an amazing story about his son. I've told you, Tony, I'm going to give Brayden a few dollars, and I need Brayden to make me a couple of coins. No, but remarkable.
Kevin may want some of those dollars too now.
I know,
Yes.
right? Kevin, Kevin wants some of those dollars. Kevin is our financial planner and wealth management for us, Tabernacle family and extended family. So, but you all have his information and Tony's information so that you all can use them as a resource. Again, standing on the shoulders of giants
Yeah.
is sharing the wealth,
It is.
sharing the information so that we all can come to a higher level. But since we're
And Taylor, real quick, I wanted to add one more thing. And I don't know, I don't think I addressed the question enough, but you may have some people that say, well, you know what, I'm living check to check.
right, come on, Tony.
I tell people, figure out a way to cut back somewhere somehow, right? Instead of Papados, on Fridays or whatnot, you might have to go to the farmer's market and figure out how to make your own off a Google recipe. You'll save a lot of money. Take that money and throw it back. And I tell people, you have to take a real good look at what you spend money on.
My
and
God.
how you reset, right? My wife said, you know what, you spend too much money, on cigars and going out. She's like, well, how about we just take a small investment and build you something so you could stay here at the house, right? And it's amazing the money that we save. And we take that money and we do something more, proactive and more financially savvy with it. So my thing is if you're struggling right now, take a serious look of where you cut back on. I go back to the whole brand conversation. Yeah, I used to buy all the fancy stuff and everything else. Now I've been married 17 years. I ain't got to look cute for anybody anymore. But I shop at H&M, right?
Wow.
I look for deals. If it's not 2 for 1, I'm not buying it.
I like that.
But I still manage to look good somehow, not all the time.
There you go.
But that's how you have to kind of take a look at it. Take a look at where you're spending your money and where you can dial it back. And I think we'll probably get to it later. We have to seriously, and I see this a lot in the Black community, when we want something, we take the worst deals. You have to learn to avoid things like high interest loans, bad investments, and things like that as well. And, Kevin could probably talk to you till you're blue in the face about good investments versus bad investments. But, I think that's sometimes we just don't want to make the sacrifice to take a step back, get our paper right, to Kevin's point, get that paper so that it makes you paper, right? And then you ball till you fall. So one comes before the other.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Take a step back by a value. If you're living check to check, your money's going somewhere. Well, my wife is a numbers gal. Everybody knows Janelle is a numbers gal. And when people come to her for budgetary advice, the first thing she does is ask for all your expenses.
Yep.
What do you spend your money on? And she asks that because if she can see what she spends your money on, she can tell you where you need to cut back. And that's where you find your savings and your ability to be able to move forward. And that's all Tony was saying. If you got income coming in and you're making it, albeit check to check, because most of us live check to check, see where you're putting that money. I think Kevin, why don't you go ahead and you're the wealth management person. Why don't you go ahead and
add
go add that
where we're going with Kevin? And I want to pick up on what Tony said about, in the Black community, we take the bad deals. I want Kevin, in your response, also maybe hit on how we're targeted, I believe, in the Black communities for the check cashing places, the places with the high interest and the bad deals, the bad loans. And even some of this ownership we should take on ourselves of, using even money apps and wanting to get the money quicker and being willing to pay the fees. And it's just a mindset shift, I think, about money. So, we could be targeted in these communities with the check cashing places and things like that and the bad loans.
Right.
But we also have to take ownership on our own to understand that these are bad deals and some of the mindset shifts that we need to do to make sure that we are making the best decisions about our money. So that wasn't a question, it was more of a comment, but can you comment on just that whole concept and that philosophy?
Yeah, I can. So I think that's one. I think more important than that is the internal look, right? So everybody, they have a dream of where they thought they would be at some point. I would say if I asked everybody, there's a vision of how they wish or would like their future to be. And so, Myra, as you talk about feeling or being targeted, at some point, you just have to get fed up and say, I'm willing to do what it takes to get what I want. And so just I've got a couple of friends that have put in place some principles that I just think, they've showed the level of sacrifice that said, hey, we're not going to be experts. We're going to be practical, and we're going to make some things make sense. So, for example, they decided to live close to where they work, so they only needed one car.
Yeah.
I would say another thing, they cut off cable.
Amen.
Another thing, if you go to the grocery store and pick up a cabbage, a lettuce, a tomato, cucumbers, and squash, those are the cheapest things in there. Water is free. If it comes out the faucet, get a purifier. And so literally, you can take someone who's really intent on saying something's got to change, and you can say, hey, I'm going to move close to where I live. We're going to have one vehicle. We're going to eat, a version of lettuce or broccoli or something green and water for a good 6 months. And if you are with a partner or a spouse, or even a friend or a couple friends who feel the same way, reduce the expense, pile on the income, drive out the debt, and then there's no more need to take the 25% interest on the credit card or whatever the fees that might come from a check cashing place.
Yep.
We've got to understand that there's a thing, it's historically been called, deferred gratification. But what it boils down to is, are you going to be someone who says, I will live for what someone else wants me to be, or I will live, for a very short time in a way that I need to, or how I want to live for a very long time.
Yeah.
You cannot allow yourself to be a target. I do understand sometimes the ends just don't meet.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if you can reach out to your 10 friends, typically we are around people who have similar issues. If my ends don't meet and your ends don't meet and his ends don't meet, let's be at the same place so we can reduce our expenses.
Yeah.
That's
Kevin,
great.
you have made a comment before, in our previous talks, about the roommate, right? And having a roommate. And I tell people a funny story that, when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of friends that were going out and buying their first home, buying big homes just to say that they had a home. I said, well, I could spend all this extra money on getting a home, or I could find a roommate and save a little bit of money and invest that money, right? And everybody was like, oh man, you got a roommate. Why are you living with a roommate? Well, your mortgage is $1,500, right? My rent is $600. I actually take that other $900 and I actually put it in an index fund and make money off of it. I still got a nice place to live. I'm actually able to live downtown, and I'm saving a lot of money, and I'm not, stressing out. And that extra residual $900, I can do whatever I want to do with it.
Yeah.
So I have to tell people sometimes, some people may look down on you and saying, oh, well, why are you doing this? And why are you doing
Come
that?
on, Tony.
It doesn't matter. It all worked out. Like I tell people, it worked out for me, may not work out for you, but in the end it worked out, and I joke with people. I found a roommate that he just worked third shift. So it looked like I had the place to myself anyway. So
there you go.
There's no future in the front when you kind of look at it. But you always have to, when you have an opportunity to talk to people that are successful, ask them what sacrifices they made, right? Because if making money and being successful was easy, everybody would be doing it. It's
Tony.
that simple. It's not easy,
Tony.
right? And if you're not sacrificing, you're not learning, right?
Tony.
Yeah.
That's some powerful stuff.
Y'all are hitting these
Y'all
gems.
are hitting it. I mean, if we make fun of the Latin American community.
I don't.
Because they come here, and 4 or 5 families or 3 or 4 families will live in the same house.
Yeah.
But they'll stay in that house together, stack their money together until they can build wealth
for the Asian community too.
Or the Asian for their individual families.
Yeah.
There are a lot of us as African Americans that are out here fronting, stunting, and doing all of these things because, we are the beautiful people and we are walking culture, but we're stunting in front of it to do all of these things and all the while suffering behind closed doors.
Yeah.
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 Delayed
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's called the collective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys can Google like the, Asian collectives of where that's how you see them starting a lot of stores and owning whole shopping malls, right?
Right.
Because everybody as a group takes their money and they say, Jen, you're going to start your business and we're all going to put in time and effort and hard work to get your business started. And then it's the next person's turn and you put money back in to those other business. It's a collective.
Yeah.
Black folks, we did
Community.
this a long time ago,
A long
right?
time ago. It's
Yeah.
time to get back to it.
And we need to get back to it.
Yes.
In terms of collectively putting, our money, back and supporting each other and supporting our businesses.
Absolutely.
The power in that, man. The
The
power in
power
the
in coming
community.
together.
Yeah. And we talked about that. What are some practical things that people can do? Again, we kind of hit on it a little bit in I'm working class, blue collar, I may be living paycheck to paycheck. What are some things that I can do if I'm just starting to learn about investing? I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot. Some of the terms you may have used, I don't even know what they are. What are some first steps that I can take as a first time investor or someone that's just learning about wealth?
And just to piggyback off of her, you already talked about, Kevin, taking time to invest in yourself. Tony, you said the same thing. That's one thing we know that you can do
Yep.
when you're first starting out. And we also know, look at where you're spending your money and try to cut. But what else can you add to that outside of those two that
Mm-hmm.
has already resonated with us?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin, you got some good investment, not investment, but good first starter vehicles that everybody should be, diving into. Care to interject on that?
Yeah, sure. So I would say if you're just getting started, you know, you'll never hit where you're going unless you figured out kind of ahead of time the direction you want to head in. So I think that's first. Something as simple as saying, hey, my mom or dad, they're too old. I don't want to work when I'm their age. So I'm gonna set a goal. So today my dad, I think he's 57. I don't want to work longer than my dad is right now. And so then you kind of know where you're headed. But when you're just getting started, there are four basic questions that a really well insulated financial plan should have. That's how am I protecting my wealth? How am I growing my wealth?
Hmm.
What's my plan to spend it down when I have a couple million? And then is it important for me to pass this to the next generation? And so one of the things that I found over the last 14 years is just that when you are first generation wealth, you have to move a little bit slower because, or first generation educated, let's say that. You got to move a little bit slower because when something happens to those around you, it may still be you who they call to help out.
Mm.
And so it's very important to follow specific steps because I always tell people if you have 6 things that you want to accomplish and you do those things out of order, like you take the wrong steps forward, life, it doesn't tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you've done those wrong. What happens if things come up and you take 3 or 4 steps back?
Come on,
Come on,
Kevin.
Kevin.
And so if you got 6 things that you want to do and you do it out of order, you're probably going to have to choose 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But if you do things in the right order, that means you're disciplined, you shift your mindset, you raise your income, you reduce your debt, you build emergency funds, you get some education, and then you start to invest. When life happens, you just roll with the punches. It's not as big of a deal. And so when you do things in the right way, life rewards you. And that's the foundational thing. But when you get a job, learn about your benefits. If you don't know, ask 5 people and see if 3 people say the same thing. Google it, YouTube it. But at most of our jobs, there's some type of retirement plan. where they incentivize us for putting money in. So
Hmm.
I run across people if they have like a 401k or a teacher's retirement plan or a thrift savings plan if they work with the government or a 403b if they work with the government. And what'll happen is their group benefit will be, hey, if you put money in, we'll put money in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say I'm making 1,000 and I'm putting in 5% of my money. Well, that means I'm putting in $2,500 a year. Sometimes the company will also put in either 2,500 or 1,200 as long as you're willing to put the money in. And so there's no one else in your life who's going to give you 1,200 bucks. So we can't walk past that. But as we take those correct steps and we are more prepared, and I call it being well positioned. So we've reduced debt. We've got emergency funds. Emergency funds are kind of like, so let me back up a step. The first question, how am I protecting my wealth? What that means, it's all about loss of income. So if I lost my job, I've lost my income. If I
Hmm.
haven't learned how to save, I've lost my income.
Yeah.
If I lose my health and I can't show up to work for the next 36 months, I've lost my income.
My
And if I
God.
have family and kids and I pass away on them, they've lost my income. And so that first step, how am I protecting my wealth? It involves life insurance, disability insurance, emergency funds, and good spending habits. So once we've done those things, the next question we can now start to answer, how am I growing my wealth? And that's when we say, hey, even if I'm not educated, let me find out what my benefits look like and definitely take advantage of that. And after that, it's really just about how much of my money can I live without. And so you find something that's just like that thing, that's your retirement plan through work. And it's as simple as saying, hey, I'm 35 or I'm 45 today. I need to have my money going into two or three things that work fairly similarly. And I need to do this for a very long time. And so once you can do that, that's kind of your baseline. Now let's say, hey, I've got a roommate or I've got somebody who is willing to give me 10 grand so I could also start my food truck. And so
Mm-hmm.
here's the value of multiple streams of income. During our lifetime, let's say we all, I think in a year, we get 27 paychecks. So if we work for 30 years, maybe that's like 500 or 600 paychecks. Multiple streams of income means I can have another lifetime of paychecks. And if I'm investing that, not just saving it, then I'm going to be light years ahead of where someone else would wind up because I am now like two people.
Nice. Nice. I really like all of that. So we've got some people that really want to know a little bit about investments, in particular, some real estate stuff. But I kind of want to get back into the now, right? And everybody knows what we're going through and what we're dealing with now. Kind of talk about this. Let's bring you back in here, Tony. Kind of talk to us about what it's like for Black Americans, Black people in the workplace, how we this whole glass ceiling kind of thing, how do we burst that, and how do we I mean, I think it's good now, because people are saying that they care about us and stuff like that, but um should this subside? It won't, but you know give us some stuff about navigating that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right now, look, I tell people if people give you an opportunity to take advantage of empathy, you better take it, and don't feel bad about it.
Come on,
Um,
Tony.
right now, when I think about let's look at diversity in the workplace. 10 years ago, diversity was all around minority hires, people of color, and everything else. Right now, big focus is diversity. With more female representation.
That's
Yeah.
If you're a Black female out there right now,
you
the
winning.
the world is yours in terms of
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. And like I said, I wouldn't feel bad about taking it either. Right? Take advantage of that. There are specific programs. My company has specific programs of where we're only looking to hire, females. And if you're African American female, that much more advantage. It's not that you're less qualified or anything else. You just need a chance at bat. And a lot of times you don't get that chance at bat. And I will say one thing, sisters knock it out the park when they get the chance at bat at my company. So you have to take advantage of some of these programs, of these diversity programs. And don't think that people are giving you a handout. I said it earlier.
Yeah.
They want diversity because the most diverse brands are the best performing brands. My group within my company is the most diverse, and we're also the fastest growing. I had to make that extremely clear. We don't look like everybody else, and we don't make money like everybody else either. We're doing better than everybody else. So think of it that way. I don't like the term glass ceiling. To me, if you told me I had a glass ceiling, my whole thing is I'm going to shoot through it anyway. You always should be aiming above the glass ceiling. If you want to be the CTO, you should really be thinking about how you become the CEO and sit on somebody's board, right? So to me, people get stuck in the glass ceiling because you weren't trying to go through it in the first place, right? That's the way you have to kind of, set goals, right? And I think Kevin made some good points too. It's like, to me, when I hear people talk about, well, I got a goal, to get here. Well, if you don't have a plan, it's called a dream, right?
Yep.
So people need to stop dreaming. Like, so my thing is, if I'm going to go above the ceiling, I need a plan.
Yep.
And that plan no longer becomes a dream when I stick to that plan and I execute, to that plan. Like, and again, I would just say, when you look at that glass ceiling in corporate America, we're truly valued. Don't ever think that you aren't valued. Take the time to get mentorship.
Yeah.
From people within the organization, especially people that look like you or came from the same backgrounds for you. But the other thing I tell us as well is that I've had a lot of people come to me and say, I've hit a glass ceiling. I don't think this company, respects people of colors, and I said, well, when's the last time you took Karen or Steve out for dinner or lunch, right? And had a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times the glass ceilings is our own inhibitions about understanding their culture and understanding how they work. In my younger years, I had a white coworker joke. He says, man, I can tell when you're talking to your coworkers versus when you're talking to your homeboys, right? And I said, you absolutely can, because I know how to flip it up. I said, I can also change it up so how I'm talking to a corporate client. So it all depends. So I think a lot of times the glass ceiling, aim to break through the glass.
Tony?
We might have lost Tony.
Might have lost him. He'll come right back. But I did want him to elaborate on that diversity because, as you know, we are an affirming church. So I kind of wanted to know, I think the diversity is in. It's a power for you to say who you are in the workplace.
Yeah.
If they want to hire women, then they're probably looking to hire LGBTQI as well.
Yeah.
And that's a power for you. And look for opportunities as a Black LGBTQI person in your workplace or wherever you are, because that diversity in corporate America is a huge thing now. Is there anything you want to add to that, Kevin?
Briefly, I would just say, wherever it is you are, if your organization is not mentioning things right now, then the ability to kind of move forward and shoot through the glass ceiling, like Tony mentioned, that probably changes. So I would always, if you're working somewhere, try to develop a skill set of looking at the lay of the land. And so I talk to clients all the time just about their personal experiences. And, especially during these times, if your CEO's not saying anything, if you're on a group call right now and the whole team's on there and, they're doubling down on all lives matter, I think, to the extent you have personal relationships, you might want to get a better understanding of what's going on around you. But I operate in what I call the opportunity economy. So to some degree, I've got a lot of autonomy and I'm self-employed. So I don't experience the same exact things.
That's important too, to think about opportunity. Tony also hit on mentorship, and I think that's another practical way. If you don't know a lot about investing in yourself and creating, financial stability, get a mentor, find someone that you can ask questions to. And as he talked about, putting a plan together, not just having goals, putting a plan together, have someone hold you accountable. Share your plans with someone, your partner, or, a family member, a friend. Have them hold you accountable. Personally, my husband holds me accountable. He's very disciplined. Like, for example, I might go to the grocery store and spend $200 where David could go and buy those same groceries somehow and only spend 100, and it happens all the time. But he holds me accountable. And honestly, I know it's funny because Taylor knows David very well, and these are very real things in the
Very,
Herring household.
very real things
But
dealing with David in the
yeah,
Mary's household. It's well,
but that discipline is so important in establishing
yes,
yourself financially. That discipline is critical. And even though I make a joke about it, him holding me accountable keeps me grounded in my goals.
mhm,
So make sure you have someone, a mentor, a community even that holds you accountable.
absolutely,
Yeah, and I
absolutely.
think too, it in our families, and kind of transitioning to another question for you, Kevin, is, how do we teach our youth? I think you have children, and they may be young, albeit, but if you want to start early, what are some of the things and principles maybe you're starting at home with your children that we can learn from?
Yeah, how do we teach our younger community about wealth?
Yeah. So I've dealt with this for 20 years now because I have a younger brother who's 21 years old, and we're 14 years apart. And so one of the things that I've always tried to do for him was talk to him about the decision making process that I was going through at the time with whatever I was thinking about. And so, we've got a very unique relationship. When he was first born, one of my goals was kind of to nurture him as if he was my own son. And so, whether I was having challenges with money in the past, or challenges with, high school and college, or, you know, relationship challenges or challenges with our parents, I would try to put, some of those things that were on my mind just in conversation with him in terms that he could understand. And, I think I've seen it pay off because I had student loan debt coming out of college, and
Mm.
he's on full scholarship. I had a commission based unpaid internship. He's interning in Silicon Valley and working with investment bankers, making, ten or $15,000 in 3 months. And so, the relationship that I've had with him, you know, I would say if there's a, father, their older brother, the younger brother, or mother, the daughter, or auntie, the niece, letting those folks in to just give them a glimpse of what they might have to experience. And then on the other end, when it comes to, the 2 year olds and the 4 year olds, I think it's so funny to try to get inside of their psyche.
Yeah.
Um, because my kids will flat out tell me, no, we're not listening to daddy. We're listening to mommy. So, they understand exactly what's going on. But I heard from somebody, um, for example, when given allowance, you don't want to give your kids allowance to work and take out the trash, because then they'll aspire to be a garbage man. You want to give your children allowance to learn, because then they'll fill their mind with things that'll propel their future.
Ooh,
Come on,
I
Kevin.
like that.
So I think, being able to creatively, I know, I love my dad to death, but I was scared of whoopings when I was little. So
Talk about
that,
it, Kevin.
Yes,
that was
sir.
enough for me. But knowing how kids are different, I try to challenge myself mentally to figure out, how can I get this young mind to, perceive some kind of concept to get from point A to point B. So,
It's good stuff.
I'll pause there because I'm sure Tony's got a lot to say about this particular topic. But if you wanted to know some other things, I've got those as well.
And my
Thank you.
apologies to everyone. We're up here talking about finances. I did pay the light and internet bill. We just had a little blackout. So
We trust you. You probably on auto pay.
Tony.
We trust you.
Yes, Lord. We ain't gonna even begin to talk about this man and money. He all right. He's all right.
I think Kev made some excellent points there. I tell people you have to really start with kids early. The first thing I always did with my kids is I set reality early. Like, I remember my son used to say, "Well, I'm going to be an NBA basketball player." I told him, I
It's a
said,
real
I
thing.
didn't mess on his dream, right?
Yep.
But what I said is like, okay, you're at a point now where you understand math. I said your chances of being an NBA player are about 1 in 8,000. So when I take you to these AAU tournaments, are you the best ball player in here, right? And he's just like, okay. Well, what else can I do to make millions of dollars? I said, if you look at Black folks, right, and you look at the population of millionaires, it's about 1 in 14 families are millionaires, and that's
Wow.
that's just across all spectrums and colors, right? It's about maybe one black household in 100. So,
Gosh.
out of 100 households, you got one that may be worth $1 million, and I'm talking about net worth million, not making $1 million a year income. I tell people if you're making $1 million a year income, it's not a smart way to ask for money. You should be asking for other things. That being said, kids understand math, right? And I tell my son, I was like, you have a better chance. You got at least 1 in 100 chance of being a millionaire versus a 1 in 8,000 chance. So which one's the better odd? He's like, I think I'm going to study a lot more, right? I think I'm going to talk to Mr. Dennis about startups. But that being said, those are just setting reality early, I think is a good first step for our younger generation. Kevin made the good points about allowance. We cover the basics in my house. You want extra money, you got to work for it. And like Kev said, it's not about taking out the trash.
Yep.
I need something painted. I need this grass cut, right? I need this car washed. And you have to earn it, because I tell people all the time, if you get it for free, you don't respect it.
That's
period.
True.
And you can apply that to money and anything else. If it's for free, I guarantee you are not going to respect it. You're not going to care if you lose it. So that being said, that's the way you kind of have to look at it. I had to look at it the same way with my son in investing stocks, which is risky. He likes to gamble. He says, well, what if I lose money? I said, well, I take it out of your savings, right? And he learned about what we call, stop limits really quick. Like your stock drops a certain price, sell it all, right? That's how you keep yourself from losing money in the market. So again, it wasn't that you got some money to invest and play with. You lose money, you're losing your personal money. There goes your Jordan fund, right? There goes that little gold chain you want. All that's gone, right? You lose money, it's gone. So it's all about, what's the risk and what's the loss. And I tell people in my 20s to 30s, what was extremely foundational is understanding and getting your credit right.
Yes.
I know it's a hard conversation for anybody, but my credit was jacked up coming out of college. I had student loans, and everybody at that point could sell those. You can get a credit card with a $500 limit and a 30% interest rate. All I cared was spending that $500 on a weekend, right? But I didn't understand that I would never pay it off with the minimum, and the bank was always earning interest. So my thing is that credit allows you to do a lot of things, especially if you're talking about opening a business and everything else. So get credit right. There's lots of different ways that you can repair your credit. Like I said, I was a master of it. I figured out how to do it in about 6 months. So I tell people I always open up the door there. But you can even teach kids credit. I teach kids credit where when you buy something with your own money, it's yours. If somebody else wants to borrow something of yours, you should charge interest. My kids knew what interest was at an early age. If you take one of my sodas out of the fridge, you owe me 2. Real quick. So it's easy, practical ways to kind of teach things like credit and interest and everything else. Don't make it complicated. And I tell people that's actually how I explain a lot of things. Kevin, you probably do the same thing, right? Because a lot of this stuff goes over people's heads. But when you put it into practical terms, some of this stuff is really easy, and it's basic mathematics, right? So don't let it be scary. Don't think the kids are too young to be able to go after and pay attention to some of the stuff, and frankly do quite well on it, right?
Yeah.
Right, right. And before you didn't pay your light bill and they cut it off, but you came back on, we asked you to put in practical terms some healthy financial practices, some healthy money practices. So give us a little Midwest practical ways of how you would articulate some healthy financial
One
practices.
thing is that when I want nice stuff, and I say nice stuff that I probably don't need anyway, I don't spend my money. I figure out a way to spend somebody else's money.
Tell us about
Kevin
that.
made an excellent
Yes.
point earlier about, when you invest in your 401k, you should always invest up to the point of where they're going to match it, right? So to me, if I put, 10,000 in some type of investment fund and my company matches 5,000, guess what I spend, or what I would even think about spending? I'll spend some of that 5,000, right? Because that was free money. They gave
Yeah.
me that money. And I'm lucky that, and I tell a lot of young people, as you start to come up in salary, don't ask for salary. I got to a point where I stopped asking for salary, because once you start getting cash has no value, right? I'd
Wow.
rather get instead of going in and negotiating, for example, if you want a $400,000 a year, salary, that's what the total package. I don't want $400,000 a year in cash. I'd rather take about 160, 165, which puts me under certain tax limits, right? And ask for the other in investment or stock or stock purchase. Why? Because most of the companies, especially tech companies, their gain in growth is about 15% a year. Where can you make 15% a year on your money? You're not going to make that in a savings account. I tell you right now, you're good for maybe 1 to 2%. So again, I spend that free money that somebody else matches. And Kevin will probably say, man, you need to clarify that, because if you make 5,000, you shouldn't spend it all. You are absolutely right. I take that 5,000 extra, and guess what I do? I take another 40% of that and put it to long-term investment, right? So again, it's about spending somebody else's money, right?
Smart man.
And I know it sounds bad,
But
but
spending the job people's money, not
but it's
not
your money. You work for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
They're giving you, and they're matching you because you're doing some value. But the thing is, it's free money. And like, I've learned the game from some really rich people about how people leverage things like stock and things like that to buy cars and never paid nothing more than interest on them, right? Have Porsches and Lamborghinis and pay nothing but interest on it. I don't want anybody calling me asking about that. I know how it works. It ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's money. I do not spend my money on fancy things. If I make some money off of the market, I'm going to treat, wifey nice first, and then, I get the scraps. But that's the process. Spend somebody else's money. Don't spend your own.
Good stuff. Kevin, you care to comment?
Yeah, spend your job's money.
Yeah.
We make that clear. Don't use nobody and spend their money using them. Do it the right way.
Taylor, I'm gonna have to tell you, when it comes to capitalism, there's no such thing as being nice. That's the other thing too, people. When you think about money, hey, capitalism is, there's winners and there's losers.
That's very true.
And you have to think about what side. Everybody's like, well, that's not ethical. Well, so
Tony.
Winners and losers. Like I said, we're a democracy built on a capitalistic nature, right? Not socialist, right? This isn't socialism. It's capitalism. So again, get your money, right? However you get it, just as long as it's legal, get your money.
Yeah, it's a resource. If you look at it like that, it's a resource that's going to open up opportunity. And if what you are seeking is opportunity in your life, in your home, in your community, you can't do it without that resource. We can't do these things we talked about opening up. The progress that we want, it's not going to come if we broke. It's not going to come if we're wearing our money. It's not going to come if we spend it all and don't save and we don't invest in ourselves. So however you have to digest this, what Tony's saying is true, reword it in your own way to make you able to accept it and not feel that you're ethically wrong and that you're morally ungrounded. But the reality is, if you're broke, you cannot progress. That's it. It's
Mm.
very
And
simple.
it's a tough to
And
swallow.
anybody talking about money, the conversations when you talk about making money should not be comfortable. It's supposed to be
Yes, you
uncomfortable,
gotta
right?
situate some
Yeah.
things.
It's
Yes,
it's uncomfortable. Kevin, like it may not feel uncomfortable to some people when Kevin's like, hey, you got to cut back. Something has to give. That's not a
talk
comfortable
about it.
conversation. But we always want the comfortable conversation. We don't want the uncomfortable conversation. Show me where things are going to break, what I'm going to have to sacrifice, and then I'm going to make the decision to get there. But don't get
Absolutely.
mad if you don't like the outcomes. And I'll close it off too. I think, and I wanted to make one more point about like children and what we could be doing. You got this summer, quit sending kids basketball camp and football camp and all this other stuff. Well, there's investment camps. There's accounting
Mm,
classes and finances they could take.
look at
Um,
that.
think about those kind of camps. My son's going to an investment camp, right?
Wow.
So think about things like that. There's young business professional camps. There's camps you could send your kids to about business etiquette and how to sit, at a table and sit up straight and speak the King's English, right?
Mm.
Think about those as options in terms of investment in yourself and bettering themselves, right? Because I guarantee they will come out of these courses and them kids will teach you something, right? And
Yeah.
they'll be going to meetings with you and Mr. Kevin saying, I'm gonna make sure, he ain't kind of trying to swindle nobody. But it's all about, that's the investment in yourself. And instead of doing what's comfortable, take courses and take steps that are uncomfortable. And I'll be quiet. I'm sorry.
Lovely.
You all right, Tony? Come on, Kevin. What you got for us?
What exactly would you want me to address?
I know we talked about this is what we'll do. We will allow you to give some closing
Closing
thoughts.
thoughts.
Unless you had another question, I think we're wrapping
Yeah,
up some
I don't
closing
have any.
thoughts. You all nailed. It's a lot of gems out there. So,
Y'all
Kevin, you
rewatch
can.
this. Rewatch
Closing
this.
thoughts.
Yes.
Um, I have two closing thoughts. So one is everybody doesn't want to be rich, and
Mm,
so that's why it's important to know and have your plan. Some people would prefer, I rather have experiences today. I rather do things with my money today. And, I always come down to or come back to, your personal goals, vision, and values. And
yeah.
if you can take that out of your head, put it into writing, and put it in the form of a written, actionable roadmap, and make your habits and your desires come into alignment.
That's good.
Whatever it is that you want is probably likely that it could happen. Now, if you are late to the game, you're gonna have to, jump over a hurdle, and that hurdle is gonna test how bad you want it.
Mm.
Um, and so, separate from that, I would say that the process to building wealth, if you could imagine this, is building some kind of cash cow or income component, and those income components they have to pour into a process where you are essentially buying something that's working for you. And so, just something as simple as like a stock or a mutual fund, what it represents is ownership.
Hmm.
And so people always call me and they'll call me and they'll say, hey, especially during the last 3 months, should I move my 401k to cash? Should I put my 401k in bonds? Should I take this money out? And I'm not going to give you advice because I don't know your specific story, but here's the true part. Um, when you own a unit of ownership, you own it whether it's down or whether it's up.
Mm,
And unless you sell that unit, you don't incur a loss. And so I always try to equate it to a house. If I live in a $200,000 house today, and COVID-19, 20, and 21 happened, and Americans lose their jobs, and my house is valued at $150,000, I don't actually lose any money in real life. That's called an unrealized loss. I only lose money if I decide to sell my home for 150,000 when I bought it for 200,000. And so the same is true of the stock market. If you bought something and it went down, If you're young, that's the opportunity to buy something on sale. If you're older, that just means you have to wait a little bit. And so whoever it is that's giving you professional advice should be able to educate you around how long you should wait. And you probably should have some other component that addresses that. How am I spending my money to get around a realized loss? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't lose money with investing, because that's, you can 100% lose money with investing, but there are ways to make sure that, you know, even in shooting for building wealth that's relative to your personal plan, you can insulate yourself
Yes.
and do some risk management. So wealth building is having a source of income, and it's very key to have that source of income be more than what you have to spend.
Yeah.
So you can reduce your expenses, you can invest in yourself to raise your income. So then you have something to save. And then you just take that and say, okay, I'm gonna put a little bit here in the 401k if I have one. I'm gonna put a little bit here in a regular investment account outside of my 401k if I have one. And I'm gonna put a little bit here, maybe in something that's a little bit safer. But I'm gonna do these three things. I'm gonna make more income and pour more into those to buy more units. Every dollar we spend on stocks, bonds, or mutual fund is like having an individual employee that's working for you while you're not working.
Good.
And so when we can do that over a 20, 25-year period of time, that's when that unit that represents the economic value becomes, gross when we look at things in its totality. That's wealth.
That's good.
That is really good.
Tony, do you want to share some closing thoughts as well?
No, man, that's a hard one to follow up, man. I mean, Kev laid down the law, right? I'm up here taking notes myself. I was like, oh, let me think about that
Yeah.
one. I like I said, I'll close it out on more of a basic statement. And I'm going to get back to, our younger folks and, our folks in the 40s plus with children or whatnot. The one thing that I would like to see, and I would stress about all these topics, right? Right now we have our network of Black and minority professionals is bigger than it's ever been. Like as growing up as a youth, I didn't have lawyers, doctors, financial advisors, professionals, or media specialists to talk to. I didn't have any of that, but we have that today. And my thing is I think that, in order to continue this conversation and continue the growth of knowledge, I tell people I don't want your kids to just talk to me, about technology or finance. I want them to talk to the room. So we have to start doing a lot better to get our kids more socially integrated and talking to the professionals out there, because we want to help our youth. Again, my thing is my success is not about my pocketbooks. It's also about how I teach others and how I grow that. I tell people my story of becoming an executive in a global company has been my key thing is how many people I brought up with me. And I want to be able to continue to do that. And I think the other thing, Kevin made a good point too. He said, do you want to be rich or do you want to be comfortable? I tell everybody I want to be comfortable.
Yes,
Like,
sir.
I
Yes,
don't
sir.
like, I'll have people say, well, man, you're rich. I was like, no, I'm comfortable. Because I tell people, and people don't always realize this, rich people got a lot of problems, right? You ain't rich until you got a lot of problems. So some of my richest friends have the most problems because with more money means more problems. So be very careful about what you ask for. And individuals like Kevin are going to do a good job of grounding you and setting, to those goals and those standards around being comfortable about being rich. And again, and it goes to the point I said earlier, they're not going to be comfortable conversations. When it comes to things like this, you have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. You are going to have to humble yourself, and like I said, without failure, there comes no success. It's not easy out there. So thank you.
You all, I mean, I'm going to go back and watch the recording. I hope you all do too. This was powerful. A lot of great information. So thank you again for sharing your expertise, your insights. your wisdom. I'm grateful because I can take away so much, and it can help further me. And again, we want to make progress. At the end of the day, the Black community has so much just natural gifts and talent. And if we invest in ourselves, if we invest in our community, there's nothing that we can't do. And I truly, truly believe that.
I also concur with you, Myra. Incredible, powerful session. We will have you guys back with us to continue further dialogue. But if you didn't get anything else out of this, I want you to know that what you have, you can work with what you have. And I don't care if you're 60, I don't care if you're 18.
Mm-hmm.
There was something in this dialogue today for you to take away to have a start to get somewhere where you would like to be, personally and financially. There is power in having there's power in having solidarity in your finances.
Yeah.
There's power in that. And our guests are here. If you want to reach out to any of these gentlemen, I do have that information for you. Put something in the chat, text me, email me. Again, Kevin Gomez is my wife and our family's personal wealth manager, growth, all of those kinds of things. Terms I don't understand. Janelle usually conducts those calls, but he's available and he's here. And nothing Tabernacle, nothing extended community, nothing is out of your reach. Absolutely nothing. Okay? We love you, Kevin Gomez. Thank you. Tony Jones, thank you. We'll have you back. Thank you, YouTube audience. Thank you, Facebook audience. Thank you, extended family. Wanted to let you know that next week we have a very special live stream again. There is going to be an exclusive with our very own Bishop Meredith. We're going to have an exclusive conversation, very in-depth conversation with our very own Bishop Meredith. His life's journey, what he's dealing with now, and where he is trying to go. God bless you. Thank all of you, and we'll see you next week.
Be well.
Thank you. There you are.